What's up, everybody? This is MX Unfiltered, episode 20. And yes, I don't have my typical backdrop because I'm actually at the Gypsy 500, and I've got a crew of 4 guys here that we're going to go try to ride for 8 hours, and I'm going to try not to break their bikes. But I've got a good set of guests here. We are going to talk about the rumors of potentially World Supercross, ixnaying the 250 class. We've got rumors of Star Yamaha with Bobby Regan potentially being bought out. We're going to talk about Beast Mode 2.0 with either Jet or Tomac. Talk about the Mutter. That we've got a lot to talk about. So let's get into the panel. As always, that'd be actually on the screen, maybe my right, but really left. I'm weird, dyslexic going on here. Coach Rob, he is the mad scientist. And then down below, we've got Maddie B, and I believe her nickname is Top Chick. Is that right, Brianna?
Yep, that's it.
Awesome. So I know you guys have been doing some more reviews on your guys' channel, and you want to just quick little breakdown on what brought you guys together and what you're doing? Because I enjoy what you guys are doing because it's different. We don't have a couple that are going back and forth about that stuff.
You want me to take it or do you want it, Top Chick?
Yeah, you go ahead and start.
So, we met like almost 4 years ago. We've always been a part of the same sport. Like, we grew up racing in the same places, but I think my head was just up my ass and I never really knew who she was. But we met like during COVID, and obviously we just share a love for the sport. And with the whole YouTube deal, with all the two-stroke nationals and stuff like that kind of helped it grow. So she and I we have a lot of fun just talking about the races, and even especially when we get to argue with each other is probably the most fun. But we just did like some little previews before the season, just like for something to do. I honestly think it was just a slow week, and we decided to pull the trigger, and people really seemed to like it. So we kind of just figured we would keep up with it. And I've said it before in some of those videos, she's not just some dumb broad. Like, she actually knows all you can really know about the racing. She can call me out, tell me I'm stupid. It's a lot of fun. We aren't quite on the level of Johnny with his reviews and his breakdowns, but we do have a lot of fun going back and forth about it.
No, I enjoy it, guys. You guys do an excellent job, and it reminds me of like my wife, because she was the one that would always tell me, like, Johnny, freaking remove the tampon and go out there and stop bleeding. And I put my tail in between my legs, and she'd hurt my feelings, but then I'd ride better. So it ended up working out. So moving straight on to, there's some rumors on the internet that Bobby Regan with Star Yamaha might be getting bought out, and I don't know who would potentially buy Star or for how much. I don't know, Coach. What have you heard?
Well, the latest that I've heard is that there's a couple of members that are on the current staff right now that are looking to actually buy Bobby out and cut the team size down to 2 250s and 2 450 riders. So I can't even imagine what the discussions must be like if you're there at the goat farm with that many riders that are there. They've got a pretty stellar 450 field with Webb, Tomac, and of course with J Coop. So, and then whether or not Deegan is going to go 450 next year or not, I know this wrist injury has kind of put a little bit of a curveball into regards to what he will or won't do. And so, yeah, there's a lot that's on the table here. I know you said in your video, in your 10-minute review show, which I think is great, by the way, congratulations on the success of that. I do think that Deegan was hoping to go in 25 somewhere, and yet the Ducati program wouldn't be available till 26. So does this fit a little bit better into what Deegan is dealing with? We'll wait and see. But yeah, what I've heard is there's some internal staff that would like to go ahead and buy Bobby out, scale the team back to 2 250s, 2 450s. So that's going to leave some people with looking for some rides, unfortunately. My question to you, Johnny, would be, how in the world would you even begin to put a value on that? Like, if you're Bobby Regan, how would you price the value of a buyout? It's not like you have common shares that you could say, okay, here's the street value of that. But what's your thoughts on that?
It's only worth what somebody's willing to pay for it. So Amen. If you only have a couple people wanting to buy you out and there's nobody else that's wanting to join you or add to it or whatever, Bobby could ask for whatever he wants. And if they don't get it, then there's no buyout basically.
But where would somebody get that kind of money? That's the thing that I'm curious about. Because if that would be the case, then why wouldn't you look at when Grundle was part of the Geico Honda team, a multimillionaire who's an investor in a team. Like, I just don't know who's working for Star Yamaha right now that would have that kind of cash. Obviously, they could go get a silent investor or whatever. But to me, it's a very interesting dichotomy, or that's not the right description for it. But I think it's an interesting environment. And I guess if Bobby was even entertaining it, it kind of goes against the grain that we've heard that this is a real big passion project for Bobby. To me, when it's a passion project, you really don't have any desire to sell because you have no reason to sell. So to me, it's interesting on both sides of the equation as to why would somebody want to buy it out and why would Bobby want to sell it if it's really a true passion project?
My question is, why wouldn't you just want to give it away? Because most of motorcycle racing is always at like a net negative.
Yeah.
What about you guys, Matty B and Brianna?
Yeah, I mean, you guys are on the ground floor of this because I haven't heard anything about it until you sent me the email that said possible Bobby Reagan Star buyout. I don't know. The only thing I can think of is maybe he's just finally getting too old to be like, I don't know, I don't know. I just know he's getting up there in age. But the biggest thing that I think of whenever you guys bring all that up is like, that's a lot of jobs that would just get slashed if those rumors were true about toning it back to two 250 riders and 2 450 riders. Like, not only do like 5, 6, 7 riders lose jobs, but I mean, that's mechanics that don't get work. I mean, that's a lot more than people think of, kind of on the surface. I mean, there's a lot that goes into all those riders. So to axe like over half of them, I mean, that's a lot of income for a lot of people that's gone. So that would be a huge bummer because, I mean, obviously I don't have to be in charge of it. So I enjoy the fact that they have so many riders. They got so many people that they're supplying jobs, kids with rides, etc. It seems like, there's a guy on the street that says he can ride Supercross. It seems like they'd be down to hire him if he rips. So, I hope they stick around in their current form just so people can keep their jobs. But I mean, Top Chicks, tell me why I'm dumb.
No, I mean, I also kind of just started hearing about this too, but I'd be interested to know kind of whether he was more looking to find someone who would take it over, or if someone presented him with a really good offer and then he was like, like, this might be a good time for me to get out of it because I don't know if I'll ever be presented with an offer like this, or just would be kind of interesting to know.
And then don't forget,
1,000%.
Also think about it, Johnny. They just, what would you say, in the last 2 years have gotten the goat farm finalized with that new building. And you've seen the videos where Whiskey Throttle walked through and went through all the different, downstairs, upstairs. I'm assuming that facility isn't completely paid for yet. I mean, that's only 2 years old. I mean, that's a lot of money that's been put into that facility to keep
If
that.
it's ever going to be paid for.
Well, that's exactly it. How do you keep that machine steamrolling forward? So to me, I don't know behind the scenes. I know that Kawasaki does pay the lion's share of expenses for Pro Circuit with salaries and bonuses and stuff like that. If all of a sudden now Yamaha's money gets cut, it gets throttled back a little bit, no pun intended, what happens to that facility and keeping that machine running? And there's like what Matt said, there's a lot of ancillary staff that's keeping that place afloat. And I'd certainly hate to see that go away.
I mean, this is all speculation as far as what rumors. It could be valid or it could be not valid.
We know the conversations are in place. That I can say with 100% confidence. We know that the conversations are in place. But what, like Brianna said, the how, the why, what the genesis is behind it, that's what I think is interesting to see what comes out in the long run. Because unfortunately in our industry, we always find everything out 3 to 5 years later after it happened. That's the hard part about our sport. The truth, as they always say, there's 3 sides to every story, right? Their side, your side, and the truth. And that's the hard part with our sport, is it seems like it takes longer than ever for people to finally come clean on it. Why? I don't know why. I mean, we could talk about the whole show on just that, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see. It's definitely, it's a very, very, it's a conversation that's getting a lot of energy, and for obvious reasons. I mean, because like what Matt said, if all of a sudden now people start losing their jobs, where do they go? I mean, it is great that we've got Triumph and Ducati, but that's not going to pick up the slack of four 4 250 riders right off the bat.
No, all three of you guys make excellent points that I didn't think of at first. I guess I will add a little bit more of conspiracy speculation to it. Could it be maybe that there is a certain member that is, or a few guys that are asking for more money? So the only way to give them more money is by cutting the majority of the team.
That's always a way. I mean, certainly. And then we can't walk around the elephant in the room either. I mean, Deegan's been an investor in Star Yamaha since day one. Maybe that's not true, but I know he was in there very, very early. If you go back and look at the early Star bikes, you saw the Deegan logo on there. I still, Johnny, you think he's going to Ducati. I just find it hard to believe that Yamaha would let him go. And especially with Brian being an investor in the Star program, I don't know. It's going to take a lot of money. And hey, think about how much money they paid Caroli to leave KTM. I would have never, if you would have asked me to be a gambling guy, would Caroli ever leave KTM? No. I mean, he's a career guy there, right? And as the old saying goes, money talks. So
I bet KTM probably is incredibly upset with them as far as just the whole brand loyalty thing. I don't think that split happened.
It wasn't amicable, that's for sure.
Yes.
It
Could because you're saying that the Deegans were an investor in Star Yamaha for a while, could I say that how cool would it be if Brian was eventually going to be the team manager of Star Yamaha?
Do
Do you think that would work at all?
What do you think?
Because he's already pretty much at the races all the time with his son.
Well, he definitely doesn't have to do it to keep his kid with a ride. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, and Johnny, you brought up a point a couple shows ago. When you've got, let's say Deegan gets to 2 million followers on YouTube and he's coming to a stadium near you, is that stadium going to be big enough for just Deegan's crowd? I mean, we kind of alluded to this subject a couple shows ago, but I mean, it's the reality with social media. So yeah, like Matt said, I mean, it would seem like a natural extension. Now, whether or not Brian wants that, because Brian's been there, seen what it takes to run a team, even with his own business, like with Metal Militia. And, you've seen McGrath come in and try to run a team. You saw Chad Reed try to run a team. You saw Ricky try to run a team. I don't know. Would he want to jump back into that? It is a completely different landscape with social media. It's not like Ricky and Chad and McGrath. I mean, McGrath's day, we didn't even have social media, right? So the funding is a little bit different nowadays than what it was back then.
I think there's a big difference between owning a team and then like managing a team. It almost seems better to be like the manager of the team because you're not responsible for at least the new acquisitions of money coming in to keep the team alive. You're just a little bit more of a performance-based employee. But again, who wants to be an employee? Nobody wants to be an employee.
Well, but think about, to your point, then why has Roger DeCoster never started a team? He's always been in a managerial position, and he has all the credentials in the world to own a team for sure. And if you look at everywhere he's gone, whether it was Honda, Suzuki, and now KTM, never once did you see him even dip his foot in the pond of becoming an owner, even at a partial level.
Dude, and every time I bring up to the powers that be, I get all these stories of Roger DeCoster like putting a stop to certain improvements and that sort of thing. It's got to almost go through Roger before the rest of the teams are going to accept it. He's essentially almost like the factory bandwagon, but I mean, he does hold the Bermuda Triangle when it comes to the three manufacturers. And Matty B, and guys, interrupt us whenever you want. I like to talk. Coach is very concise when he talks. So if you need to get through to just interrupt me.
Say no more. We got you.
Gotcha.
Well, and stop and think about the dynasty that Rogers created. Look what he did at Honda all those years there. You can't dispute it. Then he took Suzuki and put it where they were. And then he's gone and done the same thing at KTM when KTM had never even won a moto, much less won a championship. And it's just pretty hard to argue with his success, no matter where he's been, no matter what color. And the thing that I find is interesting when you look at Roger DeCoster is when you think about what KTM was before he got there, to think that Pierre, the owner of KTM, would give just so many resources and so much leeway to Roger to literally catapult that business and that company to where it's at today. I don't know. I stop and I think in 1978, when I got into moto, you'd have been laughed out of the starting gate if you said in 25 years from now, 30 years from now, the top 3 brands are going to be Husqvarna, KTM, and Gas. I mean, stop and think about what Husky was. You saw it in the enduro market a little bit. It was,
They
you know,
made like screwdrivers.
yeah, you know, Mitch Payton talks about it in his conversation with Whiskey Throttle about the whole idea that nobody was doing anything with Huskies. That's why he made it his niche, and he did quite well with it. Now, fast forward 30 years from now, and it's, as you call it, the Bermuda Triangle, and you've got the godfather of motocross that goes in there and calls the shots on what things are or are not going to be. So it's a pretty powerful position to be in.
They don't call him a man for nothing.
Say it again, Matty.
I said they don't call him the man for nothing.
There you go.
It sounds as if the rumors are true, it's probably going to help Star Yamaha. If the rumors are not true, well, they keep being a integral part of the sport and a team that everybody wants to be on. Matty B and Brianna, I know I talked heavily this week about Jet Lawrence, and I know he wasn't the only guy. You had Anstie, you had a bunch of other guys changing their rear wheels on the starting line and what constitutes a repair and interference and rules or whatnot. I want to know your guys' take, and Coach, you as well, because we haven't talked. I mean, we've texted, but we haven't officially talked face-to-face this week.
So we actually were up in the nosebleeds and we watched it like as it happened. Yeah, it was honestly, I think it was even crazier than people have let on, because they came back, they had to do a quick wheel swap, and then they struggled for a while even getting the whole shut device down. Like I was telling Brianna that I didn't think they were even going to get the whole shut device down. I thought that they weren't going to get it. I didn't even know they had a tire cover on there. I mean, we literally watched Jet look down at the guys removing his tire cover, and then like a second and a half later, he pulls the whole shot. It was actually super insane. Where you at, Top Chick?
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. We were kind of looking at each other like, oh my gosh, is this really happening right now? It was hard to see exactly what was going on because we hiked so high up just so that we could have a good view and be able to see the entire race going on. But pretty insane. I don't think I've ever seen anything like that watching racing ever.
And my whole point is, can we at least get something that says once the 30-second board is up, there is nobody around, there's no touching the motorcycle. If you don't have the whole shot button in, you are not having the whole shot button in.
I thought that's how it was, to be honest with you guys.
Dude, I looked up and down the rule books, and it was pretty vague as far as what would constitute. There is honestly nothing in the rule book about what constitutes a repair. And you know, I understand both sides, because truthfully, the repair happened behind the starting blocks where they had the bike up on the stand and they took the rear wheel off. But then again, I mean, if I was a lawyer, and I know a few of them, I'm pretty sure that they could get away with saying that that tire cover with bungees and everything, that is making a improvement on the motorcycle in front, which could constitute as a repair. But I know on Title 24, you also had Ricky Carmichael and Ryan Villapoto talking about how they asked the teams, did it interfere with them? Because you literally saw Christian, Jet's mechanic, bump into Aaron Plessinger with the handlebars. And I mean, Matt, you know, that stuff, when somebody's freaking out next to you, it's the same thing when somebody sort of jumps the gate right next to you. You might jump it too because it's interfering with you. That whole dynamic had to have interfered with those guys, but they told them no. So, Coach, opinions?
Mine is pretty short. I just think that if that was a privateer that did that and was bumping into a factory rider, all royal hell would have broken loose.
Yep.
And there would be fines and there'd be penalties and there'd be people throwing their hands in the air and they'd be stopping the 30-second board going sideways. And that just goes into the inconsistencies of the factory teams versus the privateers. I do think it's cool. Plessinger didn't have a problem with it. He even moved his bars out of the way as much as he could. He obviously that You've got Tomac to one side, Plessinger to the other, Tomac's laser focused. Yeah, there could have been a lot of complaints about it. Those guys are pros. They didn't. I'm just saying, if you zoom out to 10,000 feet, and Johnny, you mentioned this in both of your videos about it, what are rules made for if they're not going to be put into place? And just out of respect for the privateers and the consistency, I just think that would be the biggest. That's the only point that I really would bring a point. I'm sure Jet was freaking out. He did exemplify exactly. Things are going wrong last second. You roll up, boom, you almost got the darn hole shot. You know what I mean? But if we're just talking about what's going on once the bike's into the gate itself, no, I think it's not cool. And if it was Matt that was on the line, like I said, they would have probably stopped the 30-second board, because Matt he'd probably be kicked off the gate is probably what would have happened. We don't know because it didn't happen, but that's the only takeaway from it, because it was a factory rider. We're going to act like it didn't happen.
Small example. And again, I am not on a vendetta to try to take Jet out. I know a lot of my comments, because, there's a good part of my analytics. There's about 8% of all my views come from Australia. So I do understand that everyone loves Jet. I love Jet. And I really think that this was a Honda thing. Honda came in and the team kind of let them down a little bit. They were doing the best that they could. They were trying to get everything to go and whatnot. I just honestly felt like there should have been potentially at least a warning of something, and maybe even rewritten of the rules for this, because just like what you said, because God, I don't remember what race it was. And Matt, you were actually there. It was when the gate kept flinching.
Washougal.
Yeah.
Washougal. And during the LCQs and everything, it happened, but there was no restarts. But then when you had factory guys hit the gate, there was restarts, So, I mean, you could put some comparison in, but I do know comparison is really the theft of joy. And not that, again, trying to knock down the sport or anything. It just seems as if potentially there's some favoritism. And truthfully, being honest, of course, Honda and them have got more say in how things are run than what a privateer out of a box van. They put a lot of money into the sport, and, it makes sense. However, when you're looking just through a fine microscope, rules are rules, right?
Well, take it one step further, Johnny. If we weren't dealing with Jet, points leader, who he is, would we have, let's say, I hate to say it this way, but let's say and I always think of Kawasaki's, I'm not going to go there, because nowadays Kawasaki has two heavy hitters, but it used to be like when Villopoto was on there, most people would say Weimer was, not the key guy. If Weimer did that on the gate, it would have been a penalty. If Villopoto did it on the gate, probably wouldn't be a penalty. So when you look at the fact that it's Jet, the guy right now, they're not going to go start docking points and positions, because now it negatively impacts the series itself. The one thing that, if we stop and we take it just one step further, if you look at the big picture of all of this, you guys know I love JT Money. I love everything he has to say. I think his insight is incredibly good. And he said it best when he said, if I was going to ask for a wheel change, my mechanic would have told me, get your ass back to this gate as quickly as possible so you don't make me stressed out trying to get that wheel change. And I just thought that was a very profound comment, because had that happened, let's say Jet put a little bit more effort into getting back quickly, you wouldn't have seen that last minute trying to get that wheel change. So that is another thing that, what's Jet's mechanic's name? Christian, you said, Johnny?
Yeah.
And Christian was probably aging by the second with that.
Dude,
stress.
and he was probably biting his teeth that entire moto going, did I tighten the axle?
Yeah.
That could have been horrible. But I do also, the conspiracist in me wants to say, let's just say we docked Jet a couple points or even a couple positions, and now we have an even tighter points battle, or Cooper still has the lead. What kind of as far as the sport and being able to promote it, dude, the internet and everyone would have just blown up. And I think ratings for this race coming up in Alabama, even if it was a mutter, everyone would be on point, because they want redemption for Jet. Missed opportunity, in my opinion.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, and I,
Like,
I think the hard part about all this is like as far as kind of armchair quarterbacking it is like as far as I know, we've never seen anything like this. Like I've never seen anybody like looking down at their rear wheel with people messing with their wheel cover like as the gate's about to drop. Maybe I've missed it at some point, but I've definitely never seen anything like it. And to touch on the point you made a little bit earlier, Rob, I think Jet actually did kind of rush a little bit on the sight lap. I heard an interview with his mechanic where he said Jet usually takes his time and he's one of the last back, but I think they said he was the third person back. So
gotcha.
he did what he could to give him as much time as he could. But I don't know if you guys noticed or we haven't watched it on TV or anything yet. But in the 250 main, it was the exact same situation with Hymus. Like Hymus was pretty close to missing it too. So um, I don't know. I mean, they obviously have the staff, the crew, and all the know-how to get the job done. But maybe just maybe since Daytona is so much longer of a track, there had to have been a little bit of a kind of a tighter window between sight lap and main. So I think all those things probably played into it. But shoot, I like you guys were just saying, I kind of think it would have been good for the series if he would have gotten penalized. It would have gotten everybody closer together. Would have tightened the points battle back up. I almost wish they would have done something. And I'm not against Jet at all. I'm a fan. I just want to see good racing, and I know if he kind of gets some clean air and starts getting on a roll here, I don't think it'll be good for anybody else. So I'm simply coming from a place of just wanting to see a tight battle. I'm a fan of Jet. He can make it boring sometimes. Me and Brianna saw it in the summer. He would just get out front and just basically ride around and make sure people weren't close enough to him to bother him, and that's all he did for 22 motos.
Well, and typically in the rule books, these guys have like a minute to 2 minutes to make adjustments where you could amateur racing and everything. You'd be like, hey, I'm not ready.
So,
And
do they still have that with pro racing though, with the with TV schedules and everything? Because
they don't.
I had
That's
a
the
buddy.
thing.
I don't know if you guys know who Vinny Luhovi is, but at High Point he switched helmets between motos, and I guess he didn't have his hats off device in the helmet that he switched to, and they didn't tell him that he didn't have his device until like pretty close to gate drop, and he tried to do the whole 2 minute hold deal like amateurs. And I told him like, yeah, dog, like we're on TV, they ain't holding for nothing.
Yeah. And that's the exact thing that constitute what happened between Honda and Jet. And it just so happened, I'm sure there was probably similar scenarios on the gate, but the cameras were focused on the points leader, which was them. So everyone was watching what was happening.
Well, something else to add to the equation. Does that not give props to both Plessinger and Tomac that you could literally block that BS out? Especially that, Tomac always has that look of death, right? But when they zoomed out, I mean, it's like he acted like it's almost like the commercial where he's walking out at Daytona and there's nobody else there but him. His ability to focus, kind of like the way he shut Webb down. Hey, you ready to go? And he just looks at Webb like, right.
Yeah,
And then just looks back. I love it. Props to
yeah.
those guys.
It's
I
kind
feel
of
like we got lucky, like
Go
being next to those two. Those are probably two of the guys that would be the last people to say anything.
Good point.
yeah,
Absolutely.
because Eli, I think Eli was probably truly razor focused, like probably barely even noticed. But AP, on the other hand, I think he probably just didn't care. Like he probably just looked over and like chuckled, like, huh, he might not get his whole shot device. There's no way he cared.
Where Tomac, he probably didn't even know it was happening.
Yeah, no, I don't see those guys, especially those type personalities. Eli wants to beat Jet straight up. He doesn't want to do it by, hey, the rules were this. I actually win the race because your team messed up. He's not that type of a person. He doesn't want to win races or championships that way. That's why we love him. And honestly, that's why we're scared of him, because you intimidate and impress by saying less. And
Well,
we all
and
know
think about
Tomac.
look at his
Poker
bike
face.
was smoking, and he's like, "No, the bike was fine. No, your bike was smoking. No, my bike was fine." I mean, you haven't seen him once. You haven't seen him once deviate from that response. My bike was fine, right? He's about to blow the valve seals out the top of the motor. Nope, my bike was fine.
Well, shoot. I'm thinking with all the other bikes in Daytona, I think his bike might have been fine compared to everybody else, because between the arena cross on Friday and then some of those guys on Saturday, I think I might still be coughing up smoke. It was crazy. There was a lot of a lot of overheating going on out there. 'Cause
Absolutely.
I don't know if you guys paid attention to the arena cross too, but it was like even sandier than the Supercross, but in an arena. So by the end of the night, it was just basically a cloud of smoke. It was crazy.
That's nuts.
Well, this was definitely the mud race that I enjoyed watching. I mean, we might even have another mud race this weekend because it looks like the forecast says scattered thunderstorms throughout the evening. The daytime qualifying might be okay, but there might be some other mud races or just more rain. And unfortunately, I'm not a huge fan of mud races, but the Daytona mud race, that one was fun to watch because it wasn't entirely a full-blown just swamp fest, but it was wet enough to where it was technical to where these guys weren't able to consistently do a quad, triple on, triple off type of a deal, which made for really good racing.
It looked to me like the worst kind of track to race because, I don't know how everybody else is, but I'm not really into, doing all the jumps and stuff in Supercross in the dry. Like, it's pretty dang insane. So when you add that mud element to it, like I've told Brianna, whenever San Francisco was going on at the beginning of the season, when everybody was rolling everything, I was like, now that I could race that because they're not jumping. Like, it's a true mudder. But the thing about Daytona, like, it was still muddy, still sketchy, like ruts everywhere, but you still had to do all the jumps, like pretty much every lap, besides the one rhythm section that everybody was having problems with, where Jet was still making it happen. But that's just the worst kind to me. Like, I would way rather have it be a mud fest and where you're not jumping things, because I think when it's just muddy enough to where it gets sketchy, but you still have to jump things, it's so hairy. And I mean, if you guys saw anything in the Supercross Futures main event, I mean, those poor kids, they're going to have to call it Supercross No Futures because they're great.
Dude,
Yeah.
that track was – go for it, Brianna.
I was going to say I'm with you, Johnny, on the fact that, like, it was definitely more fun to watch. Besides, I can't remember. So the other mud races were definitely interesting, but I would much rather watch them be able to race the track and hit all the jumps and everything. But I get Matt's point of view too, from like a rider's perspective of like if it's slick and muddy, it's way more sketchy, and it definitely made for a lot more crashes than I think were even. I don't think we haven't watched the race on TV, but when we were there was a lot of people going down, and it was insane. But everyone was still having to try to send everything in the mud and everything. And we were watching everything as it was raining before it kind of lightened up for the race and stopped for the race. But like qualifying was crazy. It made for some interesting qualifying, and just everyone trying to still make it in, and everything was crazy.
And we actually got lucky because the rain was supposed to start like at midday and was like 60%. And that was a prediction to last all the way to like Thursday of the next week. So we really got fortunate that, like you said, Brianna, it did lighten up, a little bit of rain here and there, but I'm still amazed how deep, Johnny, you'd shown in your video how deep those ruts were. I think it was actually in your post-race live show where you showed Vial's bike going through the rut, and the mud is all the way up, to the bottom of the radiators.
Now he's
Matt,
got to touch his toe with his hand.
Yeah. Matt, you've raced in every condition known to mankind, but that just seems brutal. Pegs rolled up backwards. You can't get your foot high enough out of that stuff. Like Matt said, trying to not overheat the clutch. I mean, it's amazing how fast those guys can go with it. Brian, on the TV coverage, they didn't show a lot of the downed riders, so we didn't get to see as much as you got to see, as you're looking at it full spectrum. But it sounded brutal.
So I've been seeing, okay, maybe I said this, that it seems as if Tomac was incredibly frustrated because he couldn't catch up to Jet or hold him back, and he got stuck in Sexton's pace. Are we seeing the best beast mode that we ever have before? And then are we seeing just potentially a new beast mode with Jet Lawrence? Is like there a changing of the guard, or we just haven't seen Eli 100% yet?
Go for it, Matty. I'm really interested to see what you think.
I don't know if you guys are asking me something. Sorry, I lost audio.
Yeah, I know. I saw it go out for a second here. I'm hosting this all on my cell phone here because this casino can't afford good freaking Wi-Fi, or my buddies here, the guy that's managing the trip, didn't get the best room here. So
What's your thoughts, Brianna? What's your thoughts?
Matt and I have touched on this a little bit, but we've both kind of said we think it's kind of a combination of both. Like, we think Eli's not quite fully there where he used to be yet, but Jet's kind of found a new level too. And I mean, Jet's always been insane, but I think it's a little bit of both. I think we haven't fully seen Eli back to his 100% beast mode yet. Maybe like bouts of it here and there, but not at Daytona.
there's 2,000 people.
Yeah, see that's I have to agree with you. Maddie, are you with us? Are you back?
We should be back.
Go for it. What's your thoughts? Is Tomac in full beast mode? Are we seeing the best of him, or is Jet just at another level?
No, so I don't think we saw full beast mode at Daytona, but I do think we saw beast mode rear its head in, where was it, Arlington, where he and AP had the heat race battle, and then he came back in the main too. I do think that was beast mode, but we just haven't seen it as much this year or as consistently. And I mean, I have no insight whatsoever, but maybe just getting older, having kids, which he wouldn't like people saying this, judging by his interview, but just as you get older, you think about risks a little differently. And, to go beast mode, it's got to be risky because you're going like faster than anyone else in the world. So maybe, maybe this year he just needs a little bit of that extra comfort to really feel like going into beast mode. And maybe he hasn't had it yet. I do know they've been working on the setup with him and his arm pump issues that he had back in Detroit. So I do think that Jet has found a bit of a new level, but I also think that Jet's new level would be a really good race with beast mode. We just haven't quite seen beast mode yet. Like, I really would have liked to seen Jet versus Eli, how he was riding in Arlington. I think that would have been a good race, but obviously we saw pretty much the furthest thing from it since Jet got the whole shot and Eli was down on like the second lap. So I definitely think it's a little bit of both, but I'm surely chomping at the bit to see that matchup with Jet at his peak and Eli in beast mode. I think that's going to be, wherever it happens, that's going to be the race of the year.
Yeah, Johnny, I have to agree. I don't think that Tomac's comfortable with the Yamaha, whether it was the shock going out a couple of races ago or, we saw the smoke coming out of the bike and they said it was valve. We also can't forget, and it's been brought up here in the chat room, we can't minimize the magnitude of Tomac's injury. And yes, it's great to see him out there racing and stuff. It'd be nice if we got to, and I think we will, as we get a little bit deeper into the summer, if we get Tomac that's comfortable with the bike and we get Tomac where he's not, slightly apprehensive with that heel, it's going to make for some great racing. And it's interesting when you think about last year, not so much at this time, Johnny, but when we get into the summer, think about how it was, go back 2 summers ago when it was the Eli Tomac Sexton show and they were literally gapping everybody significantly. And then we saw what Jet did last year. And then it was like, awesome. We get to see Eli and Jet come back. As Eli's healing process continues to come along, I agree with Maddie. If we get to see full beast mode and Jet is on his A game as well, because we've seen Jet throw some things away on silly mistakes, as those continue to get themselves worked out, Jet makes fewer mistakes and Eli starts to come into being 100% healthy, balanced with the bike. I think we're going to see some racing this summer that we got an opportunity to see with Sexton and Tomac. I want to say it was 2 summers ago. Correct me if I'm wrong, either live or here in the chat room. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, that was definitely 2 summers ago because those two would come by and lap me and blow my goggle strap off, and then it would be like another 4 or 5 laps before anybody else would even come through. Like it almost felt like an honor to be on the track at the same time as what those 2 guys were doing to the field. It was incredible. It would come by you, and it was like a freaking 9.0 earthquake was passing by. Like photo. I mean, and especially. Chase, he's not as loud, but Eli, I mean, you just hear straight Yamaha airbox rev limiter, and you're just like, get me off the track now. Just take me.
I can only imagine.
Yeah, I really hope that we can see a battle between Eli and Jet at some point. It would be really cool to see this season. Hopefully, we see that here coming up soon.
Sorry, I'm trying to manage this in the chat room. I got one screen here, and then I got 4 knuckleheads over here that are distracting. With World Supercross, there's some rumors that they are thinking about potentially getting rid of the 250 class and going straight electric. Maybe it's ahead of its time. Maybe the rumor or what it will actually come to fruition is allowing electric bikes to race the 250 class. What are your guys' thoughts? I know anytime I say anything electric, the chat room, everything gets electrified. And it's a very sensitive topic because everyone wants to just sniff gas. I love sniffing gas. The reason why I like electric so much is because it's fast as F and the maintenance is lower. Sorry to have my opinion. Yes, I want the environment. I want everything to stay around for a while. However, I'm not going to be around for a while. So do I really I'm getting political. Let's not do that. What do you think about the rumors when it comes to potentially moving electric for World Supercross in 250 or adding it?
God, Brianna, go for it. What's your thoughts?
So it's actually a really perfect time for us to be chatting with you guys about this because Matt just rode the Stark Varg this past weekend. And it's not something we had really talked about before, like from any other perspective of like trying to be eco-friendly or anything like that. And you guys know, like, not just Matt, but myself too. I'm a big two-stroke fan too. I've just ridden two strokes most of my life, but from the same thing kind of as what Johnny was saying, like the maintenance perspective is really helpful. And then they are sick fast. Like it was really, really eye-opening to get to be around that this past weekend and see Matt ride it. And he actually really enjoyed it. It'd be really interesting. They were kind of talking about, and I'm not 100% accurate on this. I just overheard them mentioning that like you can set it to a certain horsepower and lock it so that the riders couldn't alter it for the races and things like that. So it'd be interesting to see kind of what they have to do for the bikes to get that going and make it consistent and equivalent to everybody. But I think it would be kind of interesting to see. It would just change things. So for me, change is just interesting and brings like more reason to watch. So
Matt, I didn't know you rode the Stark. What do you think of it?
Yeah, so I had actually never ridden an electric bike, anything besides like an Alta in the parking lot a few weeks ago, but it was my first experience with it. And you guys know, like, I'm a two-stroke guy. Like, I'm down with the sound, the smell, the pollution, like all of it. Like, that's what I'm all about. That's what I'm here for. So it's safe to say that I'm not riding it to try to be an environmentally friendly rider or anything like that. Like, it has literally nothing to do with that. I just think people need to be a little bit more open-minded to having fun on two wheels. I think that's what it's all about because even without the sound, smell, and all that stuff, the things that we've come to know and love, the bike was a lot of fun to ride. And I really strongly believe that, to keep racing, it needs to be fun. Like, that's why we started. And the bike is definitely fun. It's super customizable. So I think it's cool that, anybody can make it work for them. Like, I could have put Brianna on it and set the horsepower way down and she would have been fine. I probably wouldn't have even had to.
I wouldn't need that.
Yeah, I was about to say, I probably could have put it on 80 HP. She'd be fine. But super customizable. The only thing I wonder if they could customize in the future is like how the power comes on, because with it being electric, like it's just all torque. Like it's insane, like double shoulder dislocation type pull.
Yeah, it needs some sort of traction control.
Yeah, so that, like, it handled really well. It cornered really, really well. The only thing with the handling is it just has so much torque. So sometimes, like I have one of the videos on my YouTube, it gets a good swap coming out of one of the corners and some chop. And I think it's just got so much torque. It's through the bumps. And obviously, like on a gas bike, you want to stay in higher gear to let the bike track. And, if you're spinning up through all those bumps, obviously the bike's not going to handle right. So I had it dancing a little bit coming out of some of those corners. And then I've got this video of this coming out next week. But I actually also raced it in an e-bike class at Daytona on Tuesday for
the vintage Supercross. So the track was like incredibly tamed down, and there was only 2 other people in my class, but I rode it at Daytona too. And the thing's a lot of fun. It definitely isn't anything that would replace my gas bike or my 2-stroke or anything like that. And even talking with the people in charge at Stark, like their goal is not really to like take over and cancel out gas bikes and gas racing. Like they really just want it to be another addition, like just something different you could ride. If you have a gas bike, maybe you could have one of each, or maybe to try to help get new people into the sport. Because we're not having this problem as much in America, but I know in Europe there's a lot of tracks that are getting shut down due to just noise and environmental stuff. So in my eyes, obviously I like the 2-stroke. It's what we've come to know and love, and it's classic. But if electric can get new people into the sport and help keep tracks around and just grow it in general, I mean, I don't see any reason not to be all for it. But yeah, that was a little long-winded, but long story short, it was a lot of fun. That bike's sick.
Well, follow-up is cut the BS. What's your faster lap times on the 252 stroke or the e-bike?
So I actually haven't rode my 2-stroke in probably a month or so because it's been blown up, and I didn't get to do a comparison or anything. But if I had to guess, I would probably be faster on the gas bike, just because the biggest thing is that there was 2 handbrakes, and that for some reason it took me a long time to get used to. Usually I'm able to adjust really quick, but just a lifetime of riding with a finger.
So your Stark didn't have the rear brake on the foot?
No. And they have versions that they have foot brakes, but just the one that I rode had handbrakes. So that was a huge adjustment getting used to. But I really think with a foot brake on the Stark, I think it would be a close race, if not me being faster on the Varg, just because, like, I swear it would go 100 miles an hour down a straightaway if I wanted it to. Like, if it had wings, it'd take off and fly. It's unbelievable how fast it is.
I know. I've got a big dick, and I couldn't even manage the 80 horsepower on that sucker. I had to move it down to like 60.
Yeah.
These SOBs are all laughing at me. So I had to throw something in there. I apologize for being explicit here. Gosh dang it.
I like the setup, man. You guys are in for a good time. Gypsy 500. We're just missing out. We were just there.
Yeah, I'm planning on just drinking a bunch of liquid deaths and keeping a WFO elbow down. That's my plan. Maybe close my eyes. If I get close to somebody, I'll just close my eyes, and if I start hitting people, I'm gonna get back on track.
Go Vince.
Yeah. Gosh. Crap. Okay, so I got us off topic on everything. Moving. We'll just end with round 9. There's a really close battle between, I think the 250 class is honestly closer than the 450 class. And the 450 class is within 14 points of the top 5. But the 250 class, the top 5, with Deegan being 5th, I believe is only 3 points. There might be like a three-point tie for 5th, 4th, and maybe 3rd. I have to look at it here, and forgive the editing and everything here because I'm on site. I'm not in the studio. But what do you guys think of potentially the mud race, and who do you think is going to win round 9? Brianna, we'll go with you first.
Oh, man. So I guess it depends on really how muddy it's going to be. I feel like Jet is on an upward streak here. Like, I know he's made a couple mistakes, but I think his confidence is probably really high after Daytona. So if I had to guess, it's either going to be Jet or maybe Eli. But I think Eli's going to really try to come back and prove a point this weekend. So yeah, that's my take. But it would be super cool to see AP win.
Can't go wrong with either of those. What do you think, Maddie?
So what you were just touching on with this 250 points battle, like this is like a series that dreams are made of, because that first round there was that huge pile up, and like we all kind of thought we were getting robbed of a good championship because so many contenders were in that pile up. But then pour one out for poor Faulkner, man. I'm so bummed for him, but Faulkner going WFO onto the concrete, that kind of like brought everybody else back into it, because if he would have hung on for that 1-1, I mean, he would have had like a 15 plus point lead right there at round 2. So that really tightened everybody back up, especially Vial was down in the first turn getting flipped off by Deegan for like 3 laps, and he's like 2 points out of the lead already after 2 rounds. So that's honestly what I'm really, really excited for. Like the 450 is really good too, but I'm just excited about the uncertainty of the 250 class. That's like my favorite, is just when you don't know what's going down. So I looked at the weather a little bit this morning. It looks like the worst of it is Friday afternoon through Friday night. So I'm thinking if the damage isn't done then maybe they can salvage something. But I also saw some rumors of them maybe building a rain track, like, not a double instead of a Supercross triple, and just maybe making it a little tamer. So if it's wet, I'm going to go ahead and predict that Max Anstey bounces back from his 6 and 8 and gets a win in the mud. That would be my prediction. If it's dry, man, I want to go Deegan, as long as he does not step over his handlebars over a triple. I'd like to go Deegan. And then as far as 450, if it rains, Plessinger all the way. If it doesn't, I'd like to agree with Brianna on the Jet Tomac thing, just because they are, they're on top right now. Jet's on a streak. Eli's pissed. He wants a win, but I don't know that any of us have said anything about this guy this whole show, but I don't think we can count out Cooper Webb, because every time he has a bad race like he did in Daytona,
Agreed.
I'm telling you guys, that dude's pissed. So when he's pissed, he comes out hot. And I mean, I feel like I'm waffling on this one, because even Chase was good in Daytona. Like, I think it's going to come down to those 4. If I had to pick one, I'm going to say AP. I'm going to throw a wrench in it and say AP if it rains, and Jet if it doesn't. But look for Cooper Webb to try to cause some fireworks here, because I think he can tell. Like, he's a smart racer. He knows that Jet's on a good streak, and he's going to be hard to catch up to once he gets out of reach. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see Coop try to buff him up or get in his head a little bit, try to play those games that we know he's good at.
And Coach, interrupting what you're about to say, your boy Hunter seems like he's injured again.
Yep, it's the black cloud continues to follow him. I know you and I've talked about it numerous times here. It's just, since he's gotten here, literally, he's not been healthy. And the little stint that he was healthy, he won the 250 indoor title. And it's just, we went outdoors, was competitive, and then got hurt. And so
do you think he needs to get away from his brother?
No, I know he's got some issues that they're trying to work with and try to get, worked out, if you will, some digestive issues, some energy issues. And as Matt can attest, the grind that these guys keep up, if you're less than 100% starting the season, it doesn't get any easier as the season transpires. And unfortunately, we say in the physiology world, the second injury is always worse as a byproduct of not recovering from the first one. And Hunter personifies that entire situation. And we still can't really have too much to complain about, because we have not seen a high level of attrition in either of the classes on either coast on 250. And we haven't seen, yes, it sucks that Faulkner's out, to Maddie's point, but, with 450s, we still have a pretty solid field. I can't think off the top of my head, if AC comes out this weekend, we've got a very stacked field on both sides. When it comes to this upcoming weekend, Johnny, I think it's going to be interesting. We haven't been to Alabama in 114 years or something. I can't remember the last time we were in Alabama. So think about it. Nobody's got a history at this track. So it's almost like, if you look at how tight the points are, and you look at the fact that we're going to a new venue, and if you throw mud in there as an equalizer, it's like going to A1. You have no idea what you can expect from this race weekend. You really can't. Everything that's been set up to this point by Brianna and Matt is 100% spot on. If it rains, it could go this way, but we don't know anything about the dirt. We don't know anything about the environment there. And it will be cool, because it'll be, when this race is over, somebody will have made a statement on a new venue. Whether or not we go back there or not, there's a lot of political conversations about that behind the scenes. One of the biggest questions was, why was Atlanta not chosen as one of the SMX rounds? But we can talk about that maybe next show. But yeah, I don't really have a dog in the fight with here, because everything that Brandon and Matt said, I would agree 100%. I could go any and all directions. It's going to be a very interesting one.
Throw something at the wall. Winner in both classes.
Jet and Deegan.
Jet.
I hear you.
Yeah. It's pretty hard to argue with stats.
Yeah.
You could throw 5 of this stuff out 5 of the top. You could throw the top 5 riders at each, and there's a good chance that you'd be written. Yeah, next show we'll probably end up talking about the SMX with the Las Vegas, the smaller stadium, the Speedway, I believe that they picked, to where it's not like Sam Boyd or anything of that nature. And I apologize everybody for a shorter show today, but I want everyone to WFO that like button. And while you're down in the description, make sure you go check out Matty B and their channel as well, and subscribe to Coach Rob. So till next time, you guys, let's keep it WFO. Brianna, can you Rob? Matt?
Come on, you got it.
Come on.
You can do it.
Yeah, come on, guys.
Yacht.
Man, thank God I'm here because they're Debbie Downers. Rob.
Thanks, Johnny, for putting this
Tell-
together. Peace.
Tell them they better become uppers for the Gypsy.